All right. I thought I would just do a 10-minute video overview with some of the slides from Future Proofing in Scary Times. Visualizing the future is our first session, and I wanted to go through and talk a little bit about how I think that it would be useful for us to use visualizing the future to give us some direction in the current moment. So clearly, what worked before isn't working for many of us. Either you have been in a crisis and you have an events business and nobody's actually coming together, or a travel business or whatnot, or maybe you have a great business but really can't keep up because this is a very different time. So truly, I think that we're looking at two or more futures that are beckoning or looming, and you want to get a sense of what those are and to make sure that the right one wins out. But just knowing what they are is very useful. So if you can visualize some of the futures, the best case, the worst case, and something in between, it allows you to focus on what matters most to you and your customers, and it gives your teams a reduced sense of uncertainty. So if you can sit down and say to yourself and the people that you work with, well, this is all completely different, and the reality is that our business could go in the direction of very virtual, and once things come back, we could have an events business that is both virtual and in person, and it could totally expand the business, and that's sort of best case. Worst case is we can't figure out how to pivot or use this time in a different way, and we have to lay low and cut costs to the bone and just try to survive until things get better. And that's, truly, that is the scenario for almost any business. And you really have to granularly think about, okay, what does that look like? And talk about it with the other people. Talk about it with your team, talk about it with your partners so that you can prepare and think about the steps you could take to mitigate the worst case scenario and maximize the best case scenario, right? So hope for the best and prepare for the worst. We've all heard that before. So visualizing the future is about thinking about the signals. What are the things that are really on the horizon? What are the things that you're thinking about that will make a difference in the near term and even the farther term future? Let me just plug my computer back and get the brightness. So the signals are things like in January, I was speaking to a big events travel business, and we were talking about, in 2030, the headlines would be that hypersonic jets allow us to go from San Francisco to Tokyo in 5 hours or whatever it is. And the reality is the signals in the market are, yeah, people are developing that. Who knows when it's going to come, but it really is happening. Another is a company who's working on presence, and I visited them in LA, and I can sit across from you and give you a ball and hand it to you, and you can feel like you've just taken it from me, or we can have a handshake, and none of it involves gloves or anything really extreme. There's just a pad that has, I honestly don't know how it worked, they wouldn't tell me, but it feels like sort of air that mimics whatever the person on the other side of the screen seems to be doing. So the second aspect is foresight, and that is really taking those signals and looking at trends that you think are there for your industry. It's about thinking in January when I talked about that with the travel business, they said, what will happen if we can no longer get together? Which is, we didn't know what was coming, but it was unusually prescient. It was in early January. And what if they had started to think about that and really think about the small bets that they could take towards that 2 years ago when people were already talking about it. And then the third thing is really filtering. So filtering is looking at that and saying, so what does it mean for me? Autonomous cars, great. Does that have anything to do with my business? Not so much. I'd like it from the perspective of, more productivity if I didn't have to drive, but it's not a part of my business. So really thinking about what are the things that are really going to make a big difference for not just my industry, but my own business. So here are some of the headlines as an example of the signals that we talked about when I was doing that big talk in Shanghai in January. So how do you actually put this into play? Well, this is a sort of simple graphic that I think can be useful in terms of reevaluating your future, thinking about, okay, right now, our mission is to help people understand conflict or help people to understand crisis. Well, you have to sort of reevaluate what in this time, what is our business, right? The second is really checking in with customers. This can be in the form of a survey. It can be in the form of finding a few people that you really trust that are stakeholders or clients to have a conversation with. It can be, minimum viable product. Is it interesting to other people? Then test it. You can talk with your customers. It can be testing out a new event, a new way to get people together, and then going into candid feedback. People are much more real or much more authentic in terms of our conversations, and that's quite important. Finally, here are some examples of companies and how they have done this. So one of them is corporate communications, and they are really staying true to the mission of their clients and bridging US and China, but rather than really focused on online and educating and helping, their clients lobby, it's much more about convening their clients together to ensure that they can help each other through the crisis. So it's really refocused on community. And I apologize, my head is in the way. But the last one is really an opportunity to refocus on digital. So the next one is an HR tech platform, a very interesting one because they really focused on work from home to begin with. And they now have pivoted because they have imagined connecting people virtually and checked with their clients, and their clients all said, it's all great that we can work from home, but actually our businesses is in crisis because we cannot actually do the things that we were supposed to be doing, which is events for clients or revenue generating events. And so they have pivoted to do virtual conferences and networking as the urgency for their clients is that lost revenue. And they've started to test that. And it's enabled them to really have much more business that they can test in terms of testing the platform, how it works, what changes they might like to do, and getting feedback to go back to reevaluate their future. And then the third is an education business, shifting from in-person corporate training workshops to more virtual. The opportunity really has gone from local to regional, and the challenge is really to then think about how the staff and the processes can change to refocus on improving the process for new business. So you have similar reason for being and mission, and job to do, but your audience has changed and your method of delivery has changed. So focusing on that new future and how you can align your current activities to that new future is really important. So a few questions to leave with. What opportunities have opened up to us? What lessons have we learned that will apply in the future? What part of the portfolio is most relevant right now? And how do we align current action to put us on the path to the future we want? And finally, what have we realized we need to hold on to no matter what? Oftentimes, there are opportunities to be really candid about what it is that we really find important, be that clients, rather than a focus on perpetually growing your database. It's really refocusing on the clients that that mean a lot to you, that have a lot of value. It's about focusing on not just growing the business or the team. It's about maybe rethinking how we show up as a team and being very authentic in your leadership. So I hope that's useful. I'm going to get off because the neighbors have started drilling, but hopefully that's a little bit more helpful to you as you go forward in your business. Thank you so much, and feel free to reach out.